Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board to order. Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Can we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
Scott Anderson makes a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson to approve the agenda tonight, seconded by Mr. Payer. All in favor, Mr. Payer,
Sir?
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Grace,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well.
Mr. Bossy votes aye also, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bossy. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Bossy. I didn't see you on the screen there. Has everybody had a chance to review the draft minutes of November 1st? Are there any revisions? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second that.
Motion's made by Mr. Bossy to approve the draft minutes of November 1st. Seconded by Mr. Anderson. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy.
Aye.
Mr. Payer was not at that meeting. Mr. Brace,
Aye.
the chair votes aye as well. I'll mention this under chairman's report, just a thought. December 20th meeting, 5 days before Christmas. Let's think for the next 3 weeks. Our next meeting isn't for 3 weeks on December 6th. If we should hold this meeting or cancel it for it being so close to the holiday, just a thought. We've never done that before, but I just thought I'd bring it up since it's so close to the holiday.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Brace.
I'll be gone from December 12th to December 30th.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. So make a note, Mr. Brace, if you would, please, to have this for discussion at our next meeting then.
Okay.
Between now and then, people may have some plans. Others may not be able to attend that meeting as well. So I just thought I'd have the option there.
Okay. You could put that in the chairman's report next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Marine Department report. Do we have representation?
Sheila is not here. And then I gotta check my text. Tara said,
Oh, Tara's in the waiting room.
oh, she is. Okay. Where'd she go?
Oh, you up arrow, you gotta hit the little arrow next to waiting room 1. And then click on her. There you go.
Right. No, she's connecting. Okay. She's connected, Andy.
There she is.
There she is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brace. Good evening, Tara. Natural Resources report, please.
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me. Let's see. So the fishery started on November 1st, and we just started receiving some weekly reports from the warden. So for last week, there were roughly 12 to 15 boats going each day. I think around 8 in Mattakit, and he said 4 to 5 in, well, no. Yeah, 8 in Mattakit, and then around 6 to 7 in Nantucket Harbor, so kind of split between the two. Most people were getting in before 11 with around 5, but pretty much everyone had their limit. So that's good. And I'm hoping that, we'll have some monthly totals coming up as we go through the season. In other news, our water resource specialist has submitted her resignation and is moving on to a position in Rhode Island. So that's a little abrupt for us to try to post that and find someone to fill that void before the season, but we're hoping to have that posted pretty shortly. In other news, Vince Murphy, who is our coastal resilience coordinator, interviewed for a new position within our department. It's the sustainability manager. And he was selected among the candidates. So that also frees up his position for coastal resiliency coordinator. And I imagine that'll be posted in the next week, 1 to 2 weeks, probably, to fill that position as well. So some changing and some shifting going on within our department, and trying to figure out, summer schedules and everything like that. We had the opportunity to meet with the Great Harbor Yacht Club has a youth foundation, and kind of like a grant program that they operate, and they brought in 2 of my peers, Steve Tettelbach, who's been actively restoring the Peconic Bay bay scallop fishery, and also JJ Orth, who's responsible for bringing back the eelgrass in the Chesapeake Bay area. And they were up here last week, and so we got a chance to sit down and talk to them for 3 days and talk about making our programs better. And the Great Harbor Yacht Club is helping those guys help us, I guess is what you say. So they're working on evaluating our program and looking at what we need to do to improve our shellfish stock enhancement and monitoring oversight for our program. And also JJ is looking at kind of coming up with a eelgrass management plan based on, his work that he's done in the past, and also looking at a couple other plans that have been done in Peconic Bay. And then there's another one out there that's been published, really similar, but maybe not quite as in depth to the shellfish management plan. He was envisioning like a 20-page document that has recommendations and a matrix in the back, trying to get everybody on board for kind of, if he was in charge of restoring the eelgrass, what would he start with and where would he go with that? So I feel really lucky that we have those 2 people kind of guiding us and looking at everything that we're doing and making suggestions on, how we can do it better. And if we aren't able to do it ourselves, how can we get the funding to enlist some people to help us with all the work that we're being tasked with. So that's been pretty awesome and exciting. One of the things that came out of that meeting is we'll be receiving a piece of equipment. It's called an algae bioreactor. So it kind of looks like a spaceship, and it will replace 75% of our algae culture that we're currently doing. But it's automated and it doesn't need to be like restarted and cleaned. It really cuts down on labor, cost of an entire intern to run a whole system. And a lot of hatcheries have converted to these. It's just like a steady quality supply of algae for your hatchery. And so that's a piece of technology that we're looking forward to trying out, and hopefully it will work well for our program. What else do we have going on? We're just working on a lot of grants. We're working with the Boys and Girls Club again this year. trying to do a program with, it's a national parks grant, trying to get all of the fourth graders outside this summer, which they already are, but we're trying to do a more in-depth program that involves oyster restoration. So that's kind of fun. And really just kind of fixing everything in the hatchery and rewiring things that broke and trying to, you know, get everything ready for the new season and make a spawn plan. I've been waiting for these two scientists, you know, that we've been working with the Great Harbor Yacht Club to come up with their monitoring plan before I make a hatchery plan, because, you know, I just need to see what all is gonna go onto our plates as far as monitoring before I, you know, book everything up at the hatchery. So, so yeah, we're just in November, observing the fishery and trying to make plans, long-term and short-term, and figure out how we're gonna, you know, staff everything. So
And
if you guys have any questions, let me know.
thank you, Tara. Would that be Thais that put in her resignation?
Yeah. Yep. It was Thais. I think, you know, with a lot of these things, they are, you know, related to housing. And it's, you know, I think it's something that we're going to be up against in hiring people as well.
Very unfortunate. Sorry to hear that. Board members, questions, comments?
Scott Anderson has a question, Tara. When you met with your peer group, what did they do for eelgrass restoration compared to what we are doing here? And are the problems the same as ours, or are they different?
It's a completely different system. JJ Orth did a lot of work over on the barrier islands of the eastern shore of Virginia. So like Assateague area, if you're familiar with some of the islands off of the northern part. And he said that, you know, most of it was kind of open to the ocean and in a natural area where they didn't have a lot of the inputs that we have as far as nutrients go and runoff. You know, all of the problems with fertilizer, they had none of that. And they were able to mass harvest seeds using basically heavy equipment, and then just do mass plantings out there. So already their nutrient levels were very, very low. So they, you know, they don't have the same pressures, completely different system. But I feel like, you know, he just visiting with him for a short period of time, we took him out on the boat, we dredged, we brought up scallops and everything. You know, I learned a lot in an hour. And I think that he can bring a lot to the table for things, you know, that we haven't been doing, but also kind of emphasize the things that we need to be doing, like having aerials done every year, you know, just to just have that visual snapshot, you know, of the eelgrass and how it's changing. And we are trying desperately to figure out a way how we can expand our oversight to Mattakit, because, you know, that's also another completely different system that has vibrant eelgrass, but it also has its problems too. And I just feel like it's kind of, you know, the redheaded stepchild of the island, because we always pick Nantucket Harbor first. And I would, you know, Mattakit is just as important.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace?
or what is the job that Vincent is applying for that's within the department? What is that job?
So I don't know if you remember or if it was presented specifically to you, but I know that it was presented to the Board of Selectmen, but we, through a reorganization that happened over a year ago, we got what they're calling the sustainability arm to our department. And so the sustainability arm is going to have the coastal resiliency coordinator, the position that Morgan Sales holds right now, which is a coastal technician, I believe is what her title is. And then we're also going to have the recycling coordinator for the town, and we're going to have the energy coordinator for the town. And all of that will fall under Vince. So it's kind of like to be developed, I guess, but it seems to be moving pretty fast.
And so if he's applying for that job,
He already applied and is hired.
oh, okay. So then they're gonna hire somebody else to be our administrator for Coastal Residence Advisory Committee. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if he's going to keep that part of it or not. I'm not really sure how they work that out.
Okay, because if he was just hired, and I just got an email from him saying there'll be no meeting on such and such a date in November, so anyway, I'll have to text him. See what's what.
Yeah, he I think just signed his papers literally maybe Friday, so it's probably not out there yet that he, and I'm not sure when he is supposed to assume that role.
Okay. Is it too early to have a bushel count?
I think at the end of November, we can have a bushel count for you. Like I said, JC is recording daily and submitting them to Jeff at the end of the week. So I'm able to see what's put in the folder at the end of the week, so I can add everything up for you at the end of every month.
Wondering, I was at Carl Sherlin and Bruce Cowan's shanty last week, and I asked Bruce if he could say, compared to last year on that day, which was last Tuesday, what did he think? And he said it was too soon for him to say. So we're just, I mean, you said how many boats are out there, but do you guys have a sense of how it's going?
I mean, I feel like there are more boats than were recorded on the paper, just from visually, checking and driving around. And the weather's been really nice, so I think that's helped a lot. I would be surprised if people were not getting their limit in both harbors right now. I would be very surprised. So I think a lot of times scallopers don't really want to say how the season is going because it messes with the price sometimes.
Yep.
If you make assumptions or forecasts too far ahead.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Board members, anybody else, questions or comments? On natural resources report, I'd just like to add, I guess that sounds like as compared to last year, Tara, if there are 15, 16 boats out there between both harbors collectively, sounds like it started out with fewer boats than last year. It seems as though the season may be more promising than last season, but with the lack of participants, the bushel count may not increase the way we may like to hear it increase. On the other hand, may be good for the bottom of the harbor not to have so many boats out there dredging, but I've heard from a couple of guys that on the first day, one tow, and they had their limit. That was a guy fishes individually. He got his 5 boxes in one tow, and he's fishing Matticat. So that was good to hear. I'm glad the price is in a decent place for them, especially right from the onset. And the scallops look fresh. I've got my first permit this year ever in my life to go out recreationally. I've done it a couple of times and was very impressed with how fresh and tasty they were. So it sounds like maybe there are more recreational people involved this year. Maybe, Tara, do you have a basis there to go by, or
Can you repeat that? I think you froze.
I'm sorry.
It's saying, can you repeat that?
I'm curious to know, are there more recreational scallopers this year than last?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. We recorded the month of October, and although we don't really have a lot to compare to because we haven't been recording, you know, how many people have gone out in the past. It's something that we've been talking to with the scientists about, how to capture the catch for the recreational fishery, especially on a year like this, where there's so many in Mattakit and they are pretty accessible, you know, what that looks like, because I think that it, you know, could be a substantial amount coming out. You know, I know some of my neighbors that are, you know, gloating about how many scallops they're bringing home, and, you know, I'm sure they're not the only ones. So it's something, you know, I think we're trying to put something in place for when you go apply for your permit for the following year, that you have to fill out basically a yearly catch report for recreational, so that we can try and capture how much is coming out.
Good idea. I like that. Mr. Anderson.
Only problem with that is us old people who don't have to go get new licenses. So I'm more than happy to like report on what I would take,
Well,
but
we would have a mailer for the people with the lifetime licenses, some sort of mailer, make it easy. Maybe I'll give you a phone call and ask you some questions,
okay.
figure it out.
Good idea. All right, last call for questions or comments on natural resources report. Not seeing or hearing any. Public comment, if any, on marine or natural resources. Not seeing or hearing any. We'll move into old business. The Harbor Action Plan Committee update discussion. We have this on here. Basically, I was approached by a gentleman who was involved in the first Harbor Action Plan Committee. He's putting his name in. He was involved back in '91, I believe. He lives on the harbor. He works on the harbor. He asked if I would put in an endorsement, so to speak, or a good word to him to be appointed as one of the 3 at-large members. I sent a message to Erica Mooney. Would it be inappropriate or appropriate for SHAB to endorse at-large appointments to the Harbor Plan Update Committee, to the Select Board? If inappropriate for the board to do so, can board members endorse as individuals? And she answered that, quote, "I'm not sure, since there is a SHAB member already on the committee, so it would have a stake in it." Basically, I take that as, okay, maybe we can have some discussion on it. I'd just like to mention tonight that certainly as individuals, I would imagine as an individual, if there is somebody we would like to see appointed, we can certainly put a good word in to select board members, which I've already done for this gentleman. And I think it's important. I think anybody who wants to be involved in this has the same intentions as we do for the harbor and this plan to be updated. But I think it's also important that some people with experience from the past and who are, let's say, well rehearsed and up to date on conditions of today would be more valuable to this committee. So just something for the board members to think about.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace, please.
sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Is it possible that Erica thought that you were talking about at-large member that would be from our board in addition to Dave Ronzuto representing? Do you think she construed it that way?
I don't, but you have a good point. I could get back in touch with her and for clarification. I believe the appointments are going to be made as you stated on December 7th, which is just one day after our next meeting. So, yeah.
There's a former select board member standing here in the room, in the audience. And I don't think, I can't see anything wrong with an individual from this board getting up to the select board meeting and saying, I think this guy would make a good,
Mhm.
I mean, I can see Erica's point, us voting to support a guy. Given that, Dave has been appointed from this board to serve on the committee, and myself has been appointed by CRAC to represent CRAC on the committee, I would say that we're pretty weighted already.
Mr. Atherton, welcome. You have some,
Chairman,
yes, you have
do
something.
you mind
like
if I
that.
just could I make one comment on this subject while I'm here?
Please do.
Meeting next door was the Roads and Right of Way Committee. And I think that committee does not have an assigned seat on the harbor plan work group, as you folks do. But our members did feel that public access is a really important issue. And while they're not going to change the committee structure to allow the Roads and Right of Way Committee to have an assigned seat, we do have one of our members who has applied. And our committee had a similar discussion that you're having right now about supporting the member from our committee who's applied as an individual, and saying that his point of view of public access could add to the committee's knowledge and structure and have perhaps something to contribute. So I just mentioned that not to compete, but it's clear there are lots of people interested in these public appointments. So there you go.
And
You could always change your mind, Mr. Chairman, and support that person, because you got two folks going already.
Hmm.
And I'll leave you to your meeting. Thank you very
Well,
much.
Mr. Atherton, things happen for a reason. I'm glad you were there. Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Mr.
So-
Brace.
is this person, has this person ever served on SHAB, a harbor or a shellfish minded person, or is it just somebody who you think would be good? And if that's the case, I can't see it the harm of us supporting them.
Well, I'm sure he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. He ran a charter boat for years. It's Stephen Linebeck from Monomoy, and like I said, he said he was involved in the first plan, and like I said, he lives on the waterfront, works on the waterfront, so he's sat in on a meeting or two of ours. I believe he comes from a neutral standpoint with concerns like we all have. So he's intelligent, and I believe his opinions and what he would have to add would be valuable to the committee. Did you have your hand up again, Mr. Brace?
No.
Okay. And at this point, I don't know, who else has submitted an application for the at-large seats. But certainly we can find that out. So if I'm just putting this out there, if the board wishes as individuals, to find out who's actually actively seeking an at-large seat, to maybe go one step further, and if you feel they're going to be a good contribution to this committee, then to move forward and put in the good word and give an endorsement to select board members. Anything else on this subject? Not seeing or hearing any. Scott, I just want to say that even though your name comes after this, I think I could speak for the board, certainly for myself, that, anything you have to, to contribute to this, I think it's exciting for all of us. It certainly is for me. If you have nothing tonight, that's fine, but we'll move into green crabs if you have something new.
First of all, I do have a few things. I did read that 204-page report that Dave Franzolo sent about the last Harbor Action Plan. I found it very interesting. And so I appreciate that he provided that. One thing, I'm glad that Tara is still here because, and I looked through that action plan and they did a great job of addressing, I'll mispronounce it, the Firmagelitis, whatever the tall reeds are that
No,
overtake.
Phragmites.
What is it?
Phragmites.
Phragmites, okay. They did a great job in there of identifying that as being a problem. But they also noted European green crab and Asian crab as being a problem to shellfish and the harbor quality, but there was nothing other than the words, we're culling them. So I'm a little concerned, again, with planting more eelgrass, and the more research I've done is, I mean, the thing that disturbed me that I read today is Newfoundland is having a problem, and they're saying anywhere from 50 to 100% of the eelgrass that's being destroyed is by green crab. So I read more about the state of Maine is also having great concerns with that. So with the warming of the water, it seems that the green crabs are extremely tolerant and probably energized by that climate change because everything else isn't. So just wanted to add that in there, that I do have a lot of information to provide, and I do have concerns. We're spending money on putting more shellfish out there and planting eelgrass when in fact we're not really addressing the problem, which is deteriorating eelgrass. And the green crabs are eating somewhere between 40 to 70 clams a day. And they have extremely good grip strength to like crush things and then just engulf stuff through their gills. So I'll be preparing something to present for that January 8th meeting. Again, about the concerns of like, let's do things right. Let's clean up the problems and get some people out there. I know, Dave, you had a few ideas, and I have a few other things on how to engage the rest of the community. So that's where I am today on green crabs. I have a lot of material, just got to figure out how to reduce it and present it.
Cool.
Scott, don't feel rushed. You're indulging into this is admirable. So thank you. Tara, do you have anything you could add? Any current studies, anything on green crabs that's happening through your department?
I think one thing that I have a Zoom meeting with JJ Orth, the eelgrass restoration specialist, tomorrow, and it's something that I'll ask him. But I think as we're drawing up an eelgrass management plan, maybe it makes sense to see if a green crab management plan would work in tandem, if that would be like a good suggestion to include in the plan. I know there's a lot of research on predator and prey interaction with green crabs, and I guess it just depends on what else there is for them to eat in Nantucket Harbor besides young eelgrass shoots, and what exactly, what percent damage they're contributing to our eelgrass. Those are all questions that we haven't answered. There's been like a few bounty programs here and there, but nothing for green crabs yet. But that's not to be said that it couldn't happen. I know that anyone can set pots for green crabs if you have a letter of authorization from the state, and they're not that hard to get. So, I mean, I think that possibilities are endless. It's just a matter of what are you going to do with them and who wants to deal with them.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Tara, I should have mentioned this during your report. It sounds exciting that you going through this eelgrass and having these people involved with you. You know, for several years we had on our agenda, and we've dropped it for now, waiting to basically hear a plan, a dredging plan from Jeff. But when you're meeting with this gentleman again, or where you've already met with him, has there been any discussion about the addition of sand eroded from the beaches covering eelgrass beds? You know, there are certainly some areas like where the new eelgrass transplant is supposed to take place in Fifth Bend, that if it was not for the transplant program, we would probably never see eelgrass grow there naturally with all the sand that's there. So I'm just curious if that has been part of discussion at all during your time.
It has. I mean, we talked about the sediment transport study and what that will provide for us in terms of management for moving forward with restoration projects. He seemed to think that, I mean, one thing you can't really control in eelgrass loss with, you know, global warming is thermal stress. So, and that seems to be one of the biggest contributors to eelgrass loss right now. And he also said that, you know, light starvation and light limitation within our harbor because of, you know, nutrients and algae blooms and stuff like that. He made a suggestion of, you know, buying some inexpensive light meters and start recording the light at, you know, the depths where the eelgrass is. So you have, you know, your best chance of, you know, picking a good spot for doing these restorations that aren't light limited. So I think like he definitely will be able to have a guide for us moving forward. And with the sediment transport study, you know, those professionals, hopefully that can, you know, be fast tracked to help us make a lot of those decisions moving forward.
Good, thank you. And do we know if is Jeff making any progress with the dredging plan?
I did not get a status update on the dredging plan, but I can find out for the next meeting, or I can find out and email you guys if you're interested in it before that.
Okay, the next meeting will be fine. Thank you, Tara.
Okay.
Anything else on green crabs? Mr. Anderson?
On green crabs, but I have something for old business.
Okay.
Again, well, we approved a October 4th minutes of the meeting. And I happened to review them again, and there was one minor error in it. And I'd like to note that they said members present were Andy Lowell, Dave Bossy, Peter Brace, Scott Anderson, Ginger Andrews. Members absent, Dave Franzulo. Mr. Pear was not in either category. So I just wanted to make that in case somebody went back and looked at the minutes of the meeting, said you guys approved them. I would make a motion that we should, well, I don't know if I can make the motion or not. I'd make a motion that we modify and correct that to note Mr. Pear's, I guess, absence, because I assume he would have been present and listed had you been here.
I think he's only missed one meeting, so Peter, are you capable of editing that? And
Yes, yep.
okay, thank you, Peter, and thank you, Mr. Anderson. If there's nothing else in old business, we'll move forward to health of the harbors. Stormwater runoff and harbor impacts, discussion of possible production of zones of contribution, brochure with map for property owners, something Peter and I discussed when creating this agenda. It's been discussed at previous meetings as well, how far back inland contributing runoff enters the harbor from. It's possible there's already some mapping available. I believe, and I think possibly the rest of you would believe, that it would be handy if one of these maps were sent to every household within the zones that stormwater runoff comes from, and a little note that whatever they're using in their yard, whatever is spilled out their back door, so to speak, could end up directly into the harbor unfiltered. And I spoke about this at the Shellfish Association meeting. They did not meet this month, but at a previous meeting, and they showed an interest in contributing towards the production of this map, and also the distribution of the map. So I just simply wanted to share that with the board. I'll be sure to discuss it again at the next NSA meeting. And if there's any more discussion on this the board would like to add, please do so now.
Scott Anderson.
Yes.
When I read that harbor action plan for 2009, it did appear that they identified in like dots where some of those entry points were.
Mhm.
So I'll go back and look at what page that might be on. And again, maybe there's a way to expand that, because it was not really very legible to identify what street it was near.
Mhm. Well, I think it would be wise to, if a map is available, showing the outfall pipes, which Mr. Franzuto says there is possibly upward of 50, and then to somehow color code this map inland to as far back as where this runoff can be coming from, update this map so that it's legible and understandable by the average property owner, and so that they can really get a good idea of their own contribution, and maybe even some suggestions of what they can do to lessen their contribution as individuals. So I think personally, I think this would be a handy piece of information that we should move forward with in getting in the hands of everybody. So if we can, we'll discuss this more at our next meeting, and meantime, let's think about how we can move forward with this to the point of taking action. Whether it's in a letter to the select board, doing some more homework on our own and getting our hands on this map, and getting somebody to review it with us to make sure the map is accurate, and then the revision of the map in a color coded form, so to speak, or cross-hatched to show the areas and make it fairly obvious to whoever's reading it.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brace.
my suggestion would be that we would gather all of our information and actually produce a rough, first draft of the map. Have all the data, if we can possibly gather it on our own. I know it's volunteer time, so then we would then make a recommendation to the select board. This is what we think we could get financial help from the Nantucket Shellfish Association to produce this map. Is the town interested in financially helping or with distribution, or basically just what do you guys think? But we've been working on this, and so that we aren't going to them with just an idea. We're actually going to them with something that's almost ready to be produced. If we got a little help.
Mm-hmm.
Without doing too much work. I mean,
Right.
Because there's no sense in doing so much work and then going to them and having them say, oh, well, sorry, no, we don't want this, or you can't do this, or whatever. I mean, I imagine that if we supported the NSA, then the NSA could do it. They could say it was their idea or whatever, or with our help, since they're a private nonprofit.
Tara, any, have you ever seen this map? And is there anything happening at Natural Resources, in moving forward with this? I believe, we know that there is already discussion at the select board level. Mr. Bossy has been following along, as, basically as our liaison to keep an eye on discussion at the select board meetings, about stormwater runoff and how, they're basically going to be putting stormwater into the hands of the sewer department. That's what's been discussed so far. But are you familiar with this map, where we could get our hands on it so we can kind of toy around with it at home with some personal homework?
For all the outfall pipes that go into the harbor?
Well, and I'm curious also if an outline of the areas that actually contribute to these outfall pipes. I've been saying, as Mr. Franzuto said, as far away as the high school swimming pool. There are some storm drains in that area that drain down towards Consu Spring. And as
Yeah.
we know, like the little parking lot on Pleasant Street drains to the harbor. So I would imagine from Pleasant Street to Fair Street, Pine Street, and from there all the way into town goes into the harbor. And we know that like say Woodbury Lane area drains into the Lily Pond area. Lily Pond has a pipe that drains out to Children's Beach. So we've got a very large area, and
So
mhm.
I have I wouldn't say it's a comprehensive map. I would call it more of a piece of a map, but it has all the outfall pipes that go into Nantucket Harbor with streets, but it does not delineate watersheds. So that is something that I would probably, I can ask Jeff about to see if there is something like that exists, or a layer, but it's also something that I feel like our GIS guy for the town could easily map out for us if we needed to do that. But I'm happy to scan what I have. It's like, it is from my days with Dave Franzuto. It's super old. And I don't even know where it came from. It was taped to my desk when I got the job, and now I still have it because it seemed important. So, but I'm happy to scan it and send it to you if that's something that you would like.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
And really, I guess, we'd also need to maybe get in touch with to ensure accuracy, some input from the DPW as far as individual storm drains, and also Mr. Gray from the sewer department, I'm sure could have some input as well, having knowledge with storm drains as well, and where they may be going to. So basically what I'd like to see, and I'm sure everybody else would, is an updated map that's accurate, that we can create for 2023 and be able to distribute at some point once it's created and verified that it's accurate.
I agree. That would be a great idea.
Well, thank you, Tara. Well, yeah, if you could scan that and send it out to all members so that we can have, it's something to start with. So I think just knowing
Yeah.
and seeing where all these outfall pipes are should be an eye opener as well. So I still don't believe that
Okay.
there'll be 50 of them, but I'll take Mr. Franzuto's word for it. Mr. Bossy, have you heard any discussion since our last meeting on stormwater runoff?
No, I have not. Nothing new.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bossy. Is there any other discussion for stormwater runoff and harbor impacts tonight? Not seeing or hearing any. Excessive lawn fertilizer use. Do we have any new information? Anything to discuss? FDA shellfish taking prohibition in mooring fields. Do we have anything new on this? Tara,
The only
anything?
thing, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The
Wait.
only thing new that I have on that is that we're being notified 24 hours before they arrive so that I can hop on the boat if they're gonna be doing some sampling.
Great, okay. Meantime, do we still have areas that are closed?
I honestly never heard back, but I think everything, I mean, the Vibrio season is over for oysters and stuff, so everything should be open. But
Okay.
I will double check because it should be isn't a good answer.
Okay, and just to back up quickly, Tara, you mentioned, the warming effects and its effects on eelgrass. Do you know off the top of your head, what was the warmest temperature recorded in the harbor this summer? I recall 78 degrees and it was still July. So I'm wondering if we ever reached 80 degrees for a water temperature in the harbor this past summer.
I'll have to look back and see because that information gets submitted to SMAST and then it's compiled and we get it in the spring. So I haven't been privy to the real-time data that Thais got when she was doing all the sampling this summer. But I have recently looked at all of, the highest temperature data for the past 3 years. And I think that we hit 80 once up in the head of the harbor. But most of them, the highest was 78 degrees.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, that 80 threshold just sounds almost severe. And I did quite a bit of swimming in the harbor this summer, and there were times when it basically felt like bath water. So and as comfortable as it was for the human body, as far as the environment goes, I think it's fairly obvious it's not so good for the environment. So, but also out of our immediate control. So thank you, Tara. Board members, any other discussion on the FDA shellfish taking prohibition in mooring fields? Not seeing or hearing any, we'll move to new business. Mr. Brace, do we have a Coastal Resilience Advisory Board update?
Yeah, I guess briefly, the past 2 meetings we've discussed. In the last meeting, we pretty much finalized it. A draft Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee Select Board letter to be sent to the Department of Environmental Protection with the state, commenting on the Chapter 91 licenses, which is not everybody knows what those are. It's if you own property and you do a coastal erosion project, you're pretty much required to provide public access around or over the structure. Likewise, down in the harbor, pretty much all of the harbor has to be accessible to the public, even if it's private property. So, for instance, with the Great Harbor Yacht Club, there's a route that you can walk all the way around the front of the yacht club that's open to the public, and that's their Chapter 91 license that says that that has to happen. And so, what we're grappling with on crack is, as sea level rises and even at low tide with water bumping up against some of these coastal erosion structures, maintaining a walkable beach is a thing, like it is out in Wisconsin. But it is all the way around the island. And some people on the North Shore have bulkheads and they have, revetments, rock walls that were approved before, before we get a chance to deny any of them. And as the water comes up and you can't walk by in front of them anymore, and you have to walk over them, we are asserting even though FRAC is an advisory board like SHAB or like us, we want the ability to say, hey, we want to be able to make recommendations to the DEP and to the Conservation Commission to, when these issues come up, when the water's coming up, we want to be able to say, okay, how are you guys? I'll stop. What I'm saying is, we think that the Conservation Commission should be able to make sure that before someone applies to do work on their structure, or they're going to build a structure, that that people can still walk by there or get over it, and there has to be a way to get over it, or there has to be a way to get by. So we were tweaking our draft letter at the last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Brace. Good information. Anything else?
No.
Board members, questions or comments?
Well,
Yes, Peter.
Mr. Murphy, Vince Murphy, the coastal coordinator now, the new job, which I can't remember the name of. He has sent an email that there won't be a meeting on, I think, November 22nd for, I think that's the 22nd. Or it might be the 21st. So there won't be another meeting this month for crack.
And are they usually landing around that time of the month?
They are, what are we, the 2nd and 4th, I think. We're the anyway.
Okay,
It would be next Tuesday, so whatever that date is, we're not having one.
okay, so they're twice a month.
Twice a month, yep.
Okay, so there'll probably be at least one December meeting.
Probably be an early December meeting, yep.
Okay. Any more discussion from the board on the coastal?
Peter, are you on that advisory board of coastal resilience?
Yes, I'm the SHAB representative.
Oh, you are, okay.
Yep.
Anybody else? On Peter's report? Not seeing or hearing any. First 2 weeks of commercial based golf season, any discussion? We've covered some ground on it already, but if there's anything else board members would like to add, do so now.
I have something I'd like to bring up.
Mr. Payer, please.
We are called the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board.
Correct.
To the other members who've been here a long time, I know we do a great job with the fisheries and the scallops and the oysters and all that, the marine life within the harbor. But what does the term harbor mean to this board? What do we have to do? What is a harbor? To me, a harbor is a body of land surrounding a body of water. That means Coatue Beach, Great Point Beach, Coscata, those make the harbor, and of course the South Shore. Do we have any responsibility toward protecting against climate change, Coatue and Coscata beaches?
We do
Do you
not.
think we do?
Well, I'm gonna take this one, Andy, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Go ahead.
Coatue is owned from, let's see, I believe Fifth Point all the way to the end by the Nantucket Conservation Foundation. They are a nonprofit conservation group. And then Great Point and Cascada Pond and the Haulover are owned by the trustees of reservations, and the very tip of Great Point is owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Those entities are responsible in terms of climate change for that part of the harbor. The Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board, which is how we were created by an act of the legislature, the state legislature in 1976, and that's what they named us. was the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. That's what we named ourselves. Lots of people still call us the Shellfish and Harbor Advisory Board. So if you hear people saying shad, people are used to sort of calling it that, but we're really the Harbor and Shellfish Advisory Board. And our jurisdiction is all activities in the harbor, all commercial activities, all public activities. That's why the Marine Department comes and talks to us occasionally. And so that's our jurisdiction. The committee that I serve on, the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, is in charge of sea level rise and our coastal resilience plan. So there, we do work with the Conservation Foundation and the trustees and the nonprofits that own land where sea level rise is an issue, but we're the ones that deal with that.
Well, I spoke a couple of meetings ago about the Baleine Oyster Project in New York Harbor.
Yep.
And the 5 boroughs. And the planting of oyster reefs to prevent erosion. And I just wonder if that wouldn't be a plan for Nantucket to begin to plant oyster reefs outside of Code 2 and along, and who would be responsible for that? Wouldn't we have an input into that if we thought that was a good idea? And we're not doing it now.
I'm not the expert. Tara's the expert. I would say those oyster reefs because there's a sandbar that there's deposition of sand that comes from Great Point all the way down and across the north in front of the island, in front of the channel of the harbor and going all the way to the Eel Point. Sand is carried down in a current called littoral drift. And I'm not the expert, but I'm betting that those beds might get covered. And the trustees of reservations and the Conservation Foundation already have plans for shoring up CO2, which includes rebuilding dunes and planting beach grass. And
Coastal Resiliency has a plan for that.
no, the Nantucket Conservation Foundation does, because it's their property.
It's private property, technically. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they have a plan.
I would cede to Tara in terms of artificial reefs and the placement of where they would go and where they would work. I mean, that'd be a question for Tara. Sorry, Andy.
No apology necessary. Tara, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, my computer's breaking up a little bit, so I'm hearing it sporadically, but I think, a lot depends on the sediment transport study and what the crack committee is doing and CF. I haven't been privy to all of the details of those meetings to know exactly how they've discussed fortifying it, but if oyster reefs were something that were suggested, of course, we would be on board with assisting with that.
And I'll just elaborate a little bit, Mr. Payer. The second 2 letters of HSAB is AB Advisory Board. And, so, if the board has something we want to move forward with, we're going to write a letter of advisory to the select board. So certainly this is something we would need to discuss at our public meetings and decide and vote on whether or not to submit that letter of recommendation is basically as far as we can go as an advisory board. But I'd like to also add that more specifically inside the harbor, as far as you were, curious of beyond shellfish and aquatic life, as you can see, we're discussing eelgrass, but our concerns are also the quality of the water. So we're discussing stormwater runoff coming from landmass area and ending up in the harbor. And our concerns are also with navigation, which would possibly have dredging attached to it to assist in better navigation in shallow waters. And our concerns are also in supporting our shell fishermen and our fishermen that rely on the harbor and surrounding areas for their livelihood. So we try not to get into values as far as what the price of scallops are. It's really not something that is something that we're happy about. If the price is good, we're happy for the fishermen, because that's keeping the fishermen in the water, making it worthwhile for them to stay there and continue to harvest. But on that monetary end, we don't have any influence, and we're not going to be writing any letters of recommendation when it comes to financial end of things, in that aspect, at least, as far as the sale and prices of shellfish. But so we do cover some ground with things other than simply the shellfish, and I hope that helps with your curiosity, Mr. Payer.
Thank you very much. It does.
Okay.
I think I would probably want to talk to Vince Murphy, I guess it is, of Coastal Resiliency, just to see whether these people have considered constructing or planting oyster reefs around the perimeter of the harbor on the outside.
You do realize the area you're talking about, I'm interpreting as being the core of the bay, from Great Point to Coteau Point, which is where the East Jetty extends from. Probably about an 8 to 9 mile long beach, very expansive beach in length. If something were to be proposed here, as far as oyster reef, boy, we'd have to collect shells for 20 years to have enough to make an impact. I would like to think if we're going to try to break wave action in that lengthy area, it would have to be some type of artificial product, like a weighted kelp or something that can break down the action and energy of the wave. That would certainly be an amazing project to try to undertake. In spending a lot of time on Coteau myself since childhood, I've watched the erosion there. We do lose some beach at the core of the bay, and then it kind of comes back. And really, where more beach has been lost, and it seems never to recover at all, is inside the harbor. And basically inside the harbor, in each bend and point of Coteau has lost roughly 50 to 75 feet of shoreline in my 55 years of memory. So that's why I often bring up the dredging, not only for the for eelgrass production and possibly better circulation in the harbor, but now that coastal resilience is in the spotlight, so to speak, I feel that if some dredging were done, that these spoils could be used in the word used earlier, I believe by Mr. Bossy, was fortifying some weakened areas on Coteau. I believe it would be wise to pick some of the narrowest areas and somehow deposit these spoils about in the center of the land mass of Coteau, wherever the lowest and weakened areas are, and also the narrowest area being Fourth Bend, where projections show a breach could take place during a 100-year storm. And of course, if CO2 is broken into pieces and becomes islands, then basically we lose our harbor. And I would imagine the dynamics of the harbor would change incredibly if that were to happen. And the protection that our shell fishermen have from CO2 during northerlies and northeasterlies and northwesterlies as well would be compromised by breach or breaches of CO2. So certainly a very interesting topic, Mr. Payer, also a very complex topic as well. So if Miss Andrews was here tonight, she would inform you. I think it's safe to speak in her behalf. She's mentioned this before and it enlightened me. I've heard it before, but hearing it from Ginger really, made me think about it a lot more, is that the entire island of Nantucket is migrating northward. And that really answered the question for me: why has the inner harbor beach of CO2 lost 50 to 75 feet of frontage? And the core of the bay can lose some, but then gain some, and then bring in the information Mr. Brace just mentioned about the lateral movement of sand. It is sometimes replenished by sand that is lost from the Great Point area. I'm not well rehearsed enough to track backwards of how far away the sand can come from, but some days after a storm, you can travel the core of the bay and think, oh my God, what happened? This beach was built up. The tide didn't come up this high. Now the beach is very low, and the tide's coming up all the way to the beach grass. And then you can go not travel there for a month or two, and the shape of the beach has changed all over again, as Mr. Bossy, I'm sure, knows, as he's working out there and traveling it often. The changes from month to month can be tremendous on that stretch of beach. So very dynamic area. I would imagine if any type of project were proposed out there, it would require an awful lot of studying, engineering, and fact finding. So I hope that helps, Mr. Payer.
Well,
If I could just interrupt.
Yes, Mr.
Sorry, Mr. Blair.
your comment about the inner side of Coatue Beach eroding more than the northern coastal side is interesting. So maybe we should be thinking about planting oyster reefs on the inside of Coatue, all the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, I guess. If we're thinking about oyster reefs protecting against erosion.
Again, and I think Miss Riley needs to go because she has kids to feed. But again, Mr. Payer, the land is owned. It's owned by the Nantucket Conservation Foundation, so it wouldn't be for us to propose the reefs. It'd be up to them. So it's not really our jurisdiction.
Well, maybe we could suggest it to them if they haven't thought of it.
If you want, I will send you their joint plan for the refuge.
I would like that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll do that.
All
I'll
right.
send it to everybody. I'll
Yeah,
send
that'd
it,
be great.
send it to everybody. And there's a webinar that happened, and there's an aerial view of everything. And so I'll send that to everyone. So, okay.
Thank you, Peter. Questions or comments from the public? If we even have any here tonight, anything for our next meeting the board would like to add now? If not, you can always get in touch with Peter and I the Thursday before our next meeting to add anything to the agenda. I Our next meeting is December 6th, which I'd like to remind everybody, this is, I call it a leap week. There are 3 weeks till our next meeting, not 2. I'd also like to extend a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And if there's nothing else to discuss, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Payer to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Payer,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Mr. Brace.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Tara, thank you for being here tonight. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Andy.
Andrew.
Everybody have a good evening.
Me too.